Dysfunctional vet. This is soil sampling part 2. I want to clear up a couple of issues. A friend of mine who watched one of my videos before I posted it pointed this out. When I was measuring this back wall, you can see the red flag right there and the T-post. I had mentioned that my garden was 85 feet. As originally measured, yes, it was 85 feet. I found that this area back in here is unacceptable for a lot of stuff. I'll show you some stuff I tried to grow last year. When this rains, this area back here stands in water and it's unacceptable for gardening, although I did get a couple of acorn squash last year. When I measured the actual area that I am farming where it tends to dry out, although sometimes it's wet, it was 58 feet right here. So if there's some confusion on that, I want to apologize. The 65 feet that I spoke about is this area right back in here that's now way overgrown with weeds because it was too wet to get in there and be able to walk around and clean those things out. This area is the 65 feet that I spoke of. So if there's some confusion on that, I do apologize. Meanwhile, I took samples here, right there, over there, and what I'm doing right now for my sample ID is I'm getting geo coordinates off of it. And that's what the GPS is doing right now, is it's settling down. The Garmin is very accurate. Believe it or not, a long time ago they had a legend, which now has been unfortunately popularized for geocaching, and it's about worthless. And they don't make legend anymore, but the legends were fantastic. I wish they still existed. It's what I carried with me when I was in Iraq, and all of my references were according to that. There's two different GPSs in the military. One is called the Dagger. It's about the size of a pack of cigarettes, very accurate. The other one was called a Plugger, which was like the old radios you see back in World War II that are about the size of a small suitcase. The Garmin and the Dagger were always within 1 meter of each other, and the Dagger is absolutely accurate. I took a sample over here by my garlic, and we're going to do a test sample on this area where the garlic is growing, see what's there. Now I have a couple of tests and we're going to check that out. So right now what we want to do is we want to get everything together, so let's go look at all that. First thing we want to do is we want to have a sample ID. Our sample is 766888. I'm using military grid. This is a 6-grid reference, and that tells me where it was taken. The name, we have a home garden. So my reference, or my sample ID, is 766888, dysfunctional vet, and it's a home garden. Now, on here, something that's critically important that we want to get. It's going to ask for a sample ID, right? My sample ID is 766888. Now, alright, so my growing area is 0.6 of an acre, and we're doing vegetables. And we want test number 1 done, and only test number 1. So now, having trouble seeing the lens. So now we come up here to the top. This is going to be page 1 of 1. The name. Dysfunctional vet. Mailing address, city. We put our client name. And we're going to send a money order with the, I wonder if you can see that. Let's back off just a little bit. We're going to send a money order with it, and the amount we're going to send is $12. Now all we have to do is bag this stuff together. So let's do that. Our little envelope is really stiff. Outside temperature out here is just now above freezing. Now what I want to do is I want to fill it up to this line right here with dirt. So let's make that happen. I'm checking for any more organic material in here before I start filling my bag. I'm not really finding any. I've been through this thing many, many times, and I think I've pretty much found all of it. So now, using my scoop, I start filling the bag. This has been mixed many, many times. Now we're going to shake this down. I could put the camera to it, but it might not mean anything. We're sitting about right here, so we need about 2 more inches of dirt to go in there. We are just immediately below the fill line. Yeah, here's our fill line right there, and we're right on it. So now we're going to close this up. To close this up, we fold it. We put this across the top here, and then what we do is we fold down, fold down, fold down, and then these wings, bag is slick and my hands are cold. It's about 30 degrees out here, actually just above freezing. Now we fold these wings up underneath this. That holds the bag shut. And as you can see, the address where we want to send it is nice and clear. Now we'll take the piece of paper, we'll stick it to this, maybe a rubber band or something, along with the payment of $12, and we'll get this mailed. A moment ago I referred to this as the home pregnancy test. First thing we want to do, we're going to test for pH. The importance of pH is it tells you whether or not the plant is able to take up various micronutrients, and or if those micronutrients might actually precipitate out of the soil. That means for them to leach into the soil where the plant can't get them. The directions on this home pregnancy test for for pH, is to have a dry sample, and you have multiple little lines on here. I'm using the same spoon that I used to cut the soil because it's clean. You now fill this thing up, a little bit more organic material. You fill this up to the first line. We're going to tamp it down just a little bit. Still needs a little bit more. This is where using a sieve would come in handy. A little high. That's about perfect right there. Dog hair. Alright, or hair of the dog if you're a drinker. We now open this bag. By the way, this silver bag that this stuff came in is resealable. We now get out a green tablet. We open it and very carefully pour it in here. Little cap's hard to open. See if I bend it a little bit, maybe I'll... I may have to edit this part out. This little sucker is hard to open. There we go. Got it open. These caps are made out of plastic and they've kind of glued themselves shut. Alright, both caps are empty. The material is inside. We now, according to the instructions, we fill up to the fourth line. There it is. By the way, this pipette came folded and it's got a hole in it. That's no good. I was able to fill it, but it was not easy to do. It says cap the bottle, and it says shake thoroughly. That has been shaken thoroughly, and it's supposed to set up within about 1 minute. Can you see that? It's a very light colored green. So the soil is going to be about 7.0 or neutral. As the soil settles out, the water has a nice little green color to it. It's actually a little bit richer, almost to the alkaline a little bit, about somewhere between 7.0 and 7.5. It's a nice rich green color. Slightly neutral, slightly to alkaline. So we know that we're somewhere in between 7.5 and 7.0. We're now going to test for nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash. The directions, according to this card, say to take 5 parts water to 1 part soil. So I have 5 half cups, or 2.5, and now I take half a cup of dirt, actually soil. Let's define some terms real quick. Soil is the living part of the ground consisting of various things, micronutrients such as zinc, molybdenum, boron, and these come in the form of ions and cations, or cations and anions, positive and negative. It also consists of micro and macro life forms. The micro being things like bacteria, fungus, the macro being things like worms. Now, we add this in. Try not to spill it. There's a little bit of organic stuff. I just figured out what happened. I had water in here, so some of the soil stuck. I'm going to skim some of this bad stuff off. And throw it all over myself. Now, it says to vigorously shake this for at least 1 full minute. So here we go. We're now shaking for 1 full minute. Now, depending upon the particle size that's inside here, it may take more than 30 minutes for this to settle out. But it says leave it alone for at least 30 minutes to 24 hours, so everything will settle out of as much as possible. It also recommends that you use distilled water. Unfortunately, I do not have any distilled water, but I do have some water that's been sitting in a jug for about 2 weeks, which I use to water plants. It's clean water. All the chlorine is out of it. According to my stopwatch, we now have 1 minute of vigorous shaking. I'm going to bring this around where you can see it. It's pretty murky. So we're now going to let this sit for a minimum of 30 minutes and see if it clarifies. If you look, you can see that the heavier material is settling out. This is at 3 minutes. Up here at the top it's pretty cloudy, and throughout, there's some clarification towards the top, but down in here it's still really murky and cloudy. If you also look, you can see sedimentation of different layers depending upon how it's settling out in the mix. Pretty curious, isn't it? You can clearly see the light green. Light green says 7.0 is our... Alright. The way this works, we have the little rings on it. We fill up to the top ring with water, and then we add the tablet, which is the color of the cap. So, let's pull these caps out. Purple cap. Orange and blue. Now if you remember, I told you that my pipette is broken. So I'm using a very small syringe and I'm pulling right from the surface so it'll have the least amount of gunk in it. There's some organic stuff floating in there and it's pretty well suspended. I can't get it to sink and I can't get it to rise. I'm going to put a bubble in there and see what it does. It didn't do anything. Alright, that was 1.5 liters, a cc and a half. I'm going to pull a full 3 cc's on this. Alright, it holds about, starting with 1, holds about 3.5 cc's roughly. Just kind of ballparking it. We take a purple tablet. I found a good way to open these after I screwed one up. What you do is you figure out where the top of this thing is, and you just kind of peel up, and the cap will break for you. Just like that. Now we try to very carefully dump it in there. We cap it. Now we're going to do the blue one. I'm going to try to measure out exactly how much fluid it takes. We're going to start with 3 cc's. Alright, that's 3 cc's. By the way, the water settled for 6.5 hours to get the clarity that I have now. It takes 4 cc's. Alright, we'll put a blue one in there. Most of it went in there. Now we cap it. Now we put in the orange one. We're starting with 1 cc, so it should take another 3. Again, pulling from the top so we have the clearest water. That accounts for that half cc I got in the form of an air bubble. Now the red one. Alright, here goes the red one. Says shake vigorously for 1 minute. In case we need to redo this, we'll hang on to what we got. These are the colors that we're looking for right here, and it tells what we have. It says shake thoroughly, allow color to develop for 10 minutes. Got a stopwatch. It doesn't say anything about temperature, but according to my thermometer, it's 55 degrees at this time. Alright, we're going to set this. We're going to start this. We'll come back in 10 minutes. The test says that you'll start getting color changes in about 10 minutes, and the truth of the matter is, within 10 minutes it was happening. I let it sit for 30. Now as we look at this first color, it's a light, very light potash color, kind of a like dirty talcum powder. So we're down here at the very low level, right here. Moving on to phosphorus, which is the second one, we have a actually kind of a green color. It's not even blue, it's green. We shake it up a little bit and we get a bluish color, which is down here somewhere between low and very low. It's a toss up there. Here we mix up our nitrogen and we get a 0. So 0 nitrogen, low to very low phosphorus, and the potash is very, very low. So that's how this test worked out. We're going to compare this with the results from the lab where I sent it to Texas A&M. So we'll be able to combine all that and have a idea. We'll be comparing apples with a soil test kit and with the lab results.